Hey troops, welcome to the channel. My name's Ryan. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando from the United Kingdom, and today we've got an update on Ukraine. It is Monday the 9th, and we've got some news on Bakhmut. There's been a simplified, revised Institute Study of War report we're going to review, and some combat footage from Bakhmut. Let's get into it today, troops. Okay, here we go. Right, so you got some guys. What is that? It's a Azov regiment, I believe it is. I might be wrong. Hang on, let me see. I think it's in the screen. Yeah, Ukraine's Azov regiment footage from combat in Bakhmut. Okay, we can't see where they're firing to. Can't see the enemy anywhere. This area's been completely decimated, guys. The areas in which the defendant, give back to the Ukraine people has just been absolutely decimated.
Бежим, бежим, бежим. Кузнец, на МГ. Давай, атакуем направо. Все, бежим.
Just brought down to rubble, man. You know, what they're fighting over is effectively trash now, which is... It kind of defeats the whole object of this, really, when you think of it.
Давайте, давайте, давайте.
Okay, tanks blasting about 100 meters in front of them, it looks like. No, really close, actually. 20 meters or so. Okay, and that's all she wrote in terms of the footage for that bit. Bakhmut, the reason it's interested me, guys, is I've been looking at the war maps and stuff, and to be honest with you, the Bakhmut, there's mixed reviews about if Ukraine is managing okay. There's reviews saying, Ukraine is managing to hold out, but the map says otherwise. Now, when I was doing daily updates, I would probably have had a slightly different opinion on this, but now that I'm doing sporadic updates, I get to see the map change drastically from when I do an update to the next time I do an update, and this there seems to be a lot of traction in the northern area of Bakhmut, which was something that I didn't envision happening. I seen Russia, plodding on and trying to take southern regions of the city, but they've pushed further north into other settlements, and they seem to be making a bit of progress, unfortunately, guys. We're going to get into that right now. So here we are, troops, on the Deep State map. It's a fantastic map system. Go check it out if you have time. But if I click on updated, as of today, the enemy continues to press Bakhmut with little success. This is the thing, okay? We need to be... we can be on the fence, we can be left or right every now and again, but we need to be honest now. The enemy continues to press Bakhmut with little success. Let's look at Bakhmut. Let's go back to the beginning of the month and... Well, guys, I'll let you decide what you think with that. So, here we go. Bakhmut, quite a big area, okay? I think you can see that pretty good on there. Quite a big city, okay? In terms of infrastructure, in terms of what it was used for before the war, okay? Now, let's look at the map. It's the 9th today. Just watch what happens here. We're going back, to the back end of of the month prior. So Soldar, yeah, it's granted it's northward of Bakhmut. Doesn't really make any difference, you say, but technically speaking it does. We've got these supply roads going all the way down the center, and I'll just annotate it slightly for you guys here so you can see it a bit better. We've got main road system going down there, and we've got one going pretty much straight through Bakhmut, okay? Now if you look where the enemy's been progressing, and they've been progressing towards Soldar, I believe they now have that city, okay? It looks something like this. We'll do a fast forward on the map so you guys can understand a little bit what we're looking like. I'll just colour that in just for annotation purposes. But they now control that northeastward part of in and around Bakhmut, which, allows them to be able to push on southwards towards these other little settlements and reorganise themselves. And Bakhmut, no matter what you say, is going to be a hard city to take. due to the Ukraine defenses and stuff. But they don't want to let too much more land slip northward of their position and southward. And we're going to get into some reasons now. If we look at the map, fast forward it, and we can see this north region near Soldar. There, see, they've pretty much took that whole area. Okay, so they've made quite a bit of movement. Yes, Bakhmut is not really changing, but in the grand scheme of things, are we going to see major changes as a result of this? This is the current situation. Soldar, yeah, it's not really a big settlement or anything. It is populated. I say not that big. It is still quite big, but in comparison to Bakhmut, maybe it's not. So this is the current situation here. Now, if we annotate this map just a little bit, let me get my wonderful rectangles out. This area, it looks to be surrounded. I'm not too sure if it's going to be surrounded entirely soon, but we've got a couple of neighbouring settlements on the way down to Bakhmut. You could say that these are probably on the agenda for Russia. I don't know if they've changed their tactics or what, but my impression is they're moving in this direction. They put a lot of emphasis on taking these little areas in and around Bakhmut with the intention of potentially grasping a lot more land in this area to be able to eventually push for Bakhmut within and have more of a presence behind them, so to speak. So Soldar, I don't see why they wouldn't continue that momentum into these areas here. Okay, pushing on down, pushing on through, taking over land, and before you know it, you've got the enemy in a position to be able to strike northward of Bakhmut. That certainly looks, that's how it looks to me anyway, guys, okay? Now, I'm just being honest with that. So, what else is happening in this region then? Let's look southward. I don't think there's too much traction within the region there, okay? Not much. Little bit near Andriivka. We can see that the enemy is spurred out a little bit more. It looks like a bit of a river system here. These lines, though, let's remember, sometimes they get revised based on intelligence. Intelligence might have been wrong, so they correct those frontline positions. So they might have already had this area, but it might have been overtaken by the Russians. We don't know. What do I see happening for Ukraine? I see them holding out Bakhmut as they have been doing. There's been some fierce fighting over there for the past few months now. And if I'm honest with you, this whole area, let me just change the color because friendly is blue. Bakhmut, big old area, guys. To defend this area, we need something to change. We need a little bit of momentum to change within Ukraine. I don't know if that's resupplying them. I know there's some tanks being sent from the US, I believe, to be able to bolster these not just Bakhmut, the surrounding towns and villages need to be bolstered, okay? And I think Ukraine needs to really think about these northward areas of Bakhmut, these little villages, these little settlements. We don't want to leave too much more open to Russia to be able to overtake. That northern flank towards Bakhmut, I think, is key, okay? That's what I personally think. So defending Bakhmut is going to be long drawn, and it's going to be hard work, guys. We've seen all the footage on Telegram groups and stuff like that. It's not nice, to say the least. So that's the map bit done there. Now, is it correct that the map is saying, let me get this up, the enemy have a progress in the area of Soldar, which we've seen, but they're saying that they haven't had much progress in Bakhmut. Now, indirectly, Russia has had progress for Bakhmut because that northern flank is integral for the defense and the offensive of Bakhmut, okay? If you control the flanks of a certain area, then you have a higher chance of being able to overrun the next area, which is Bakhmut. So, granted, they haven't made that much progress in the city of Bakhmut at this moment in time, but the neighbouring settlements Russia has, which I think is a problem, and we need to keep an eye on that, guys, okay? So that's my point on that. Next, Institute Study of War. They've got some good information coming out. Let's review it. Okay then, troops, grab a cup of coffee or a whiskey if you're from Texas, and let's get into this then. So, ISW is publishing an abbreviated campaign update today, which I like these abbreviated versions, okay? Now, this report discusses the Russian Ministry of Defense's attempts to claim that Russian forces responded to the December 31st Ukrainian strike on Russian positions in Makivka and Russian MOD's use of grievance and retaliation framework, and the resulting creation of negative feedback loops in the pro-war Russian information space. Wagner Group financer potential attempts to financially exploit Ukrainian natural resources around Bakhmut. Okay, around Bakhmut. Now, we've already done a map study. Makes a little bit more sense now, right? The areas in and around Bakhmut. And the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense, UK MOD, assessment that Russian forces may be preparing for a Ukrainian counteroffensive actions along the Zarizhzhia and Luhansk Oblast front lines. So there's information coming in that potentially Ukraine is, preparing for a counteroffensive along those front lines that we've just been observing in detail. We've seen this in the early original counteroffensive in the northern and eastern areas, okay? And it was very, very successful. Now, how can you defend from that effectively? Well, obviously the information space has to be clear and concise, and that information that you are receiving has to be well received. Knowing that it's true, you have to act upon it accordingly. That's up to the big high-up generals and, the officers on the ground relaying that information and having a real good plan to be able to counter-effect whatever Ukraine is preparing to do. Russia, notoriously speaking, I don't think has been too good at using the information that's out there and actively capitalizing on it. If anything, I think they've been terrible in that realm, okay? That's why the original counteroffensive went so smoothly, okay? Not just the fact that Ukraine is a dominant force within the region and a professional one that's been trained by Western allies. We are also looking at the lack of discipline and lack of military etiquette and professionalism on Russia. So we've got two parties involved, and both of which are affecting, Ukraine's progress in many areas. Now, what we've seen happen is, as a result of Ukraine's, positive, how can I put this? When they seem to have a positive action, Russia's reaction to that normally seems to be, well, we've lost a lot of land there, we've left our troops and our kit and equipment there, let's just, utilize some of the storage facilities that we've got full of bombs and artillery shells and just shell the shit out of a position. That's what their response normally is. And those positions normally have nothing to do with the counteroffensive. They normally seem to sporadically hit and target civilian infrastructure to do one thing that Russia is really, really good at: scare the local populace into submission. That's what they're trying to do, okay? They're trying to scare the locals into going, we don't want this, all right? Our loved ones, everyone's been bombed. Why us? Let's just give them what they want, so to speak. Winning in that way is something which Russia's been utilizing in warfare for centuries now, okay? Is it going to work in 2023? Well, I don't think so. I think people are over that. Next, the Russians' MOD's attempt to claim Russian force responded to the December 31st Ukrainian strike against Russian positions in Makivka and generating further discontent in the Russian information space. The Russian MOD announced on January 8th that Russian forces conducted a retaliation operation against Ukrainian forces for the December 31st strike on Makivka. Just when I hear Russia say retaliation in any context for the Ukraine war, just makes me laugh inside. It's like, really, retaliation to what you're actually doing? Everything that Ukraine is doing right now is in response to your, illegal invasion of a country neighboring you. So I just laugh when Russia claims and uses these words with their rhetoric. It's condescending as hell. So the strike in Makivka that killed up to 400 mobilized soldiers due to Russian commanders' failures and poor personnel dispersal practices. We've seen these practices and poor Russian command from the start of the war. The Russian MODs falsely claimed the retaliatory strikes targeted several temporary Ukrainian deployment points in Kramatorsk, Donetsk Oblast, and killed over 600 Ukrainian personnel. This claim is false. A Finnish reporter visited the site of the strike of Kramatorsk on January 8th, which was yesterday, I believe, and noted that it hit an empty school. Thank goodness it was empty, guys, okay? We understand the war crimes that's happening over there. Humanitarian issues has just been absolutely blown out of... I don't understand this. I understand it's part of war, but it just blows my mind that, allegedly sophisticated countries in the West are allowed to get away with this type of stuff. It blows my mind that Russia thinks it's okay. Whether or not that school was empty or not, it shows their moral compass, okay, is just not aligned with most countries on this planet. Now, 7 Russian military bloggers responded negatively to the Russian MOD's claim, pointing out that the Russian MOD frequently presented fraudulent claims and criticizing Russia's military leadership for fabricating a story to retaliate for the Makivka strike instead of holding Russian leadership responsible for the losses accountable. We've heard this rhetoric over and over again, using their, stupid excuses to be able to retaliate in certain ways, in certain manners, normally unethical, normally affecting the local civilian populace, normally wrong on so many levels, okay? Now, people may be thinking, well, it's war, how can it be wrong? Trust me, guys, there's a level of conduct that is displayed in war, and, there's rules and regulations, and, yeah, believe it or not, most countries follow those in times of war. Russia seems to be thinking it can do what the hell it wants. It's getting away with it for that long. It just does what it wants within these within war, especially in Ukraine. We're seeing that right now. But military leadership fabricating stories to defend their own actions because they're shit at their job. This is common rhetoric that we've seen coming out of Russia, all right? Not just in military, but in other areas as well. We'll not get into that today, but it seems to be a bit of a, I don't want to say a societal thing, because I don't think that generic Russians are like that, but in terms of any position of power, in terms of politics, governance, military leadership, we see the same type of rhetoric with these people, okay? Holding other people accountable for their stupid lack of professional ability. And in the military, the consequences are people lose their lives, It's not rocket science, guys. Now, the Russian MOD's application of a grievance and retaliation framework to many of its operations has created a negative feedback loop with prominent members of the pro-war Russian information space. At the beginning of the massive campaign of strikes against Ukrainian critical infrastructure, yes, I agree. They're not wrong there, but that wording is just, we need to be honest. Critical infrastructure, they were targeting civilian buildings with civilians in them in many cases. They were targeting hospitals. They were where people were giving birth to babies, people were injured. The amount of we need to change the wording slightly, and that's what I'm doing this for. Critical infrastructure, very, very true. But let's go in depth about where they were actually striking. They were striking places that effectively had nothing to do with the war initially, where people were still residing. Old women and children who weren't able to get out of the area safely. That was part of the infrastructure what they were attacking, guys. Let's get this rhetoric correct. Which happened October 2022. I remember it so well, we were covering it at the time. Now, the Russians' MOD employed a similar framing of retaliation against claimed Ukrainian strikes on the Kerch Strait Bridge and other Russian infrastructure. The Russian MOD partially used this framing to mollify escalated demands from the pro-war community to avenge Ukrainian actions, but provoked an array of responses from military bloggers outlining other instances that the Russian MOD should equally retaliate for. Retaliating for, how dare you attack us back? You don't let do that. It's mental. Now, the Russian MOD has thus created a negative feedback loop wherein it attempts to respond to Ukrainian offensive successes with a discrete retaliatory offensive action, which then opens the MOD up to continue criticism from discontented Russian military bloggers, highlighting their beliefs that the MOD is responding in the wrong manner or to the wrong event. I agree wholeheartedly. The Russian MOD's response to the Makivka strike is a clear continuation of this grievance and retaliation model that that has once again opened Russian military leadership to staunch criticism of their conduct on the war. It has opened them up to criticism. We're getting bloody sick of this, okay? Really, really sick of this. The decision-making by the Russian MOD, in the leadership in particular, the people who need to be held accountable, the Russian military bloggers and the Ukrainian military bloggers and people like myself are holding these people accountable, okay? You can't just go around. Let's use this in a hypothetical event. You've invaded a country. That country responds. You don't like that response, so you decide to blast the hell out of innocent infrastructure with individuals located within that infrastructure, had nothing to do directly with the war. As a feeling of your lack of military leadership, that's just disgusting in my eyes. That's how I'm reading into it anyway. We can read into it quite a bit differently, but it just sickens me, all right? This war is sickening people. Now, I'm starting to get a bit sick of this whole situation, as you can tell the way I'm talking right now, guys, okay? I don't do these updates regular now, but when I do, it just angers me that this thing is still going on, okay? It really is. But that's all we're going to do today. 20 minutes in, guys. Thanks for being here. And yeah, if you like this kind of content, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to see ad-free, uncensored content, things that we can't put on YouTube, please click the Patreon link in the description and in the comments section. That's where we upload weekly combat footage reviews and stuff like that. We're getting a lot of good traction on that Patreon. So if you do want to support me, guys, it's a cup of coffee, and I'd really, really appreciate that. But thanks for watching. Wherever you are, stay safe as you can. I'll see you in the next one, troops. Peace.